Hello there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another Shadow Talk. This is episode number 163, and today I'm going to be covering the With a Faerie hand-in-hand supplement. But before we get into that, the usual review, or not review, but the usual news of the latest Schwalbe Entertainment releases. And I'm showing one on my screen right here. So this is a Black Star supplement and has not been added to DriveThru RPG as of yet. So the only people that have this are those that backed the Black Star Kickstarter, of which I am one. And we periodically get these Black Star supplements, and we got a couple this week. This one is part of the Villain Codex. And it is for a villain by the name of Domina Calaria, Matriarch of Bloom and Ruin. And, pretty much gives a story, and, lots of information regarding this villain. It's got the stat block, difficulty 250. Of course, this is for Shadow the Demon Lord, and our stat block's pretty extensive, a couple columns worth, and so I haven't read this. This is actually the first time opening it, and looks like a villain, all right, and quite a bit of backstory. So she seems to be pretty fleshed out. Looks like we also have something else in here. Philia Scalaris. A Darius plant. Difficulty 25. Okay. Okay, so we have some plants. Plant monsters. Can't have enough of those. Okay, anyway. That's Domina. And the other one is, again, another villain for the Villain Codex. And this one is for Ignatius Maliceri. Insigni Medicus of Malatore. I think we're trying to make this as difficult to read as possible. Joking. But anyway, so yeah, same thing. These villain codexes, I really haven't taken a look at them too closely. I haven't used really any of them as of yet. But I have all the ones that have come out, of course, and I will continue to collect these. And one of these days, when I'm looking for a villain, I will read through these, and I will probably utilize them. But at this point, not so much. Okay, so Ignatius is also a difficulty 250, so he's fairly tough. And let's see if we got some additional monsters. Oh, it looks like he's a doctor, or at least he's associated with a hospital. Okay, that's always creepy, having a villain that's a doctor. Alright, so let's see what else is in here. We've got cultists. Can't go wrong with cultists. Thralls. Loculus, which is a frightening spirit. Desecratus, which is a horrifying undead. And Head-Rooted, which is a frightening Dirus. Can't remember what Diruses are, or Diri, whatever. So I don't know what that is exactly, but difficulty 5, so it's not that tough. Desecratus, on the other hand, is difficulty 250, so he's just as tough as the villain in this supplement. Okay, so those are the two new releases this week for Shadow the Demon Lord, the Black Star line, and I'm sure they will hit DriveThru RPG eventually. They're not there right now, and that means that those of you that did not back that Kickstarter are going to have to wait to pick those up. All right, so anyway, main topic for today is With a Faerie hand-in-hand. This is the third supplement, I believe, that Schwalbe has released for Shadow the Weird Wizard. The first two being Weird Ancestries, that one, and Glory to the High One, which I covered in my last video. So today we're doing With a Faerie hand in hand. Now this is obviously a Faerie supplement. And as such, it's chock full of all things that are fairy related, elves included. And I gotta say, just kind of like I said with my last video, I'm not the biggest fan of the Fae. Um, Not a big fan of elves, and they just don't do anything for me. There's nothing wrong with them necessarily as a player character or having Fae included in campaigns. They're definitely fantasy material. So, not having them would be weird. But I do have to say that I probably never run a campaign that focused on the Fae. And the main reason for that is because I feel like they're too complicated in the way that I think they should be run. Now, the way I think they should be run is kind of like how they are portrayed in the Dresden Files. So if you are a reader of the Dresden Files, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're not, basically the Fae are, well, they're pretty scary, actually. They're powerful, they're scary, and yeah. Another literary source that I could cite is actually cited by Schwab himself in here in his introduction. Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, or Norrell. And I've read this book, and the Fae are alien creatures there as well. So I guess that's how I like the Fae to be portrayed. They may look humanoid, but they are different. They are aliens, and they live forever. And so they cannot possibly comprehend what it's like to be a mortal because they are immortal. And as such, time means very little to them. So it's kind of hard for me to put myself into that mindset in order to run them properly in a campaign setting, which is why I've been hesitant to do so. And I really can't come up with a whole lot of ideas for running the Fae. And that's what supplements like this is for, is to give you ideas. And this is chock full of stuff. I do admit this is a good book for covering this topic, the Fae. Just like the last one, Glory to the High One was a good book covering that religion. Just not my jam. But this one was a little bit more of an interesting read, so I did manage to get through all of it. But let's just go ahead and go through this book and just see what Schwab has to say about them. Okay, so first of all, in his introduction, he talks about what some key differences are between humanity and what he refers to as the bright folk. First of all, fairies are beings of pure magic. Secondly, they have eternal youth. Thirdly, they have limited memory. Now, this is pretty interesting because I figured, they're immortal. They always remember what happened. In fact, if you watch Lord of the Rings, you got, the Elf Lord, whose name is slipping me at the moment. But, you have the Rivendell Elf Lord that remembers when the ring was supposed to be tossed into the Mount Doom and wasn't because, the king wanted to keep it for himself. And that happens millennia ago, 2 or 3 millennia ago in the movie. So clearly he has a pretty good memory. But here it says that most Fae, since they live so long, they only retain about 100 years worth of memories. And then they start forgetting stuff prior to that. So that would be not only memories, but skills that they learned. So let's say they learned to play, a lute a couple hundred years ago. They wouldn't necessarily remember how to play a lute now because they've just kind of moved on and adopted kind of a new life, even though, they're living the same life. They just move on and reinvent themselves, I guess. So yeah, they have limited memory, which I thought was an interesting concept. Perfect health, an aversion to iron, changeling forms, true death, and amoral inclinations. Now, changeling forms basically means that any Fae can change their form to any shape, and I'm assuming humanoid shape. Um, Although that may not necessarily be true. They could change into animals, as far as I know, but they can assume different shapes. It just takes them a little while to do so. Some of them are more accomplished than others, and some can do it fairly quickly, like changelings. But then you have other fae that may take years or centuries to be able to change their form. But all fae have that in common. They can change how they look. They can even change their gender. So they have changeable forms. True death basically means that they don't have an immortal soul that is separate from their bodies. Their spirit, their soul, is their body. So if their body dies, so does their spirit. So there's no reincarnation for the Fae. And then amoral inclinations basically just means that they are beyond good and evil. They do whatever they feel like doing, and they really don't either care or understand that there could be repercussions. So these are some interesting things to keep in mind when you're running Fae in your games. So I like this summary. This is a good summary. All right, Chapter 1 is about Immortal Hero. So if you want to create a Fae creature, or a Fae character, I should say, this chapter gives you some ideas. Now, you can already create characters with some Fae ancestries in the weird ancestries. So, for example, you got a sprite in here. That's a Fae creature. You have Spriggans. I believe those are, no, those are plants. Never mind. What else do we have here? Shadow Kith, I believe, might be a Fae creature. Then we have, of course, elves. And what else? Are Faerie Fae creatures? I don't know. Anyway, so you already have some Fae creatures that you can run using this. Now this gives you a few more ideas in the new supplement, or the current supplement here. You can come up with a Faerie Kith. Now a Faerie Kith, and I'm probably saying that word wrong, but a Faerie Kith basically is a character that has some kind of connection with the Fae. Whether they have it in their bloodline or whether they were infected by the Fae. Maybe they were kidnapped and forced to live with the Fae for a period, and they just assumed Fae traits. Anyway, that's what a Faerie Kith is. Let me see what else we have in here. So Faerie Kith traits would include Fairy Mischief, Fairy Step, Fae Senses, Fleet-footed, Uncanny Grace, and Wholesome. Gives you some ideas on what fairy adventurers would be interested in, or would be like. And then you have some fairy professions here. Some fairy equipment that you can give to your character, because remember, the Fae don't like iron, and so they can't just go to the local smithy and pick up a sword or a battle axe. They have to have basically special weapons created for them, utilizing non-iron ingredients or materials, not ingredients. All right, so let's see what else we have. Fae personalities. So you've got a table down here, attitude towards mortals. Then you got attitude towards fairies. Then we have some discussion about the fairy homelands. Now there are 3 that are discussed here. You got the mortal world, which of course is the world of Earth. And so some fairy live on the mortal world. They just went there and just, they dug it. Maybe they like the fast food. Who knows? They just hung around. Then we have liminal places. Now, liminal places are those places where the mortal world touches a hidden kingdom. So it's kind of like a boundary between both places. And liminal places tend to be kind of weird. You might have, rain that falls upwards, or you might have talking plants, or, whatever. And then the last one is the hidden realms, of which there are a few. Listed in here is the Glade of Gladness, Decaying Lands of Bitter Regret, the Shining City. So those are just a few that are named here. But anyway, hidden realms, similar to how they're portrayed in Shadow of the Demon Lord, are realms that are not actually in this world. They're kind of in a pocket dimension that's attached to this world. And so they're their own plane for all intents and purposes. All right, then we have fairy novice paths. So you have what's called an avowed, and these are characters that venerate an archfey. So you got patrons listed in here. The patrons are pretty generically named. If it were me, I would probably add actual names to these patrons, but you have the patron Beauty, Guardian, Purity, Spite, Trickery, and Vengeance. So your avowed character would venerate one of those patrons. And you got a little bit of a description of each here. All right, so that's an avowed. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so that's the only custom path. And then we have other novice paths, that Faerie can take, which includes the fighter, the priest, the mage, and the rogue as your typical novice paths. But it basically goes into how the Fae can be treated a little bit differently utilizing those novice paths. All right, chapter 2 is pretty cool. It's called the Night Market, and it talks about this mobile market that appears in a place, then may stay there for a few hours or maybe even a few days, and then disappears and pops up somewhere else. You never know where the night market is going to pop up, at least mortals don't. The Fae do, and if you want to go to the night market, you're going to have to find a Fae to give you the heads up. So it talks a little bit about Fae commerce here. The Fae have weird ideas on valuation of things. A Fae creature may find, and it gives this example in here, they might find a flat rock with a hole in it to be extremely valuable to them. And so they might leave that behind when they steal a farmer's pig. Now, obviously, a farmer's pig is more valuable to the farmer than a flat rock with a hole in it, but to the Fae, that's a fair trade. Conversely, a Fae may have a incredibly valuable emerald or some gem, and they may take, a particularly pretty flower that a mortal grew in their garden and leave the gemstone in behind as a fair trade. Again, the Fae have strange ways of determining value for themselves. And then they also have what's called fool's gold. Fool's gold is basically, it looks like gold, feels like gold, but when you touch it to iron, it turns into its original material. So fool's gold is made by elves. And, they try to use it because they know that mortals value gold. So they try to use it whenever there's, some kind of interaction with mortals that require, monetary transactions, and they use fool's gold. Now, the people that are savvy on when they're dealing with Fae know to have a piece of iron nearby so that they can touch the gold to the iron to see if it's actual gold. If it turns into some crummy material after it touches the iron, then they know they have fool's gold. So I thought that was pretty neat. Faerie arms and armor. So, as I mentioned earlier, they don't use iron. So they have to have equipment that is iron free. And so they have 3 different types of armor listed here. They have bark armor, dragon scale armor, and woven armor. And then they have weapons materials. So you got blood ore, you've got cold iron, and let's see here. Fairies never use weapons made from cold iron. They fear it. Such items never appear for sale openly in the night market. A shifty troll might peddle them in secret, though. Cold iron weapons have been shaped by means other than forging, chipped, bent, or subjected to magic. The raw materials become swords, spear points, arrowheads, and the like. The lack of flame and heat makes the weapon especially baleful to fairies. Attacks made against fairies using cold iron weapons deal an extra d6 damage. So, yeah, the materials here aren't necessarily what the fairy make weapons from, but materials that are important to the fairy. And in this case, cold iron is detrimental to them. Flow metal is sounds like mercury to me. And then you have ironwood, which is a form of wood that is as strong as steel. All right, so let's see. We talk about fairy arrows here. We have enchanted arrows, moon shadow arrows, and smoke arrows. Then you have fairy gear and trinkets, including airy wine, bag of wisps, banger pod, catch fruit, enchanted instrument, faraway mirror, folding tent, frisky chest, handful of rain, invisibility cloak, because of course, iron rot dust, love fetor, madness bitters, starshine taste, star wine, stay put stone, swan boat, trackless shores. And so you got the price for all those listed here as well. Oh, here's some more. Wand of Charms, Waybread, and Wild Beast Nut. Yeah. Okay. Talks a little bit about fairy texts here and fairy animals. All right, then chapter 3 has fairy magic. So you've got your obligatory additional spells that are fae related or fae flavored. So you got a couple of aromancy spells, a few alchemy spells, alteration spells. Let's see what else. Animism spells, some astromancy spells, some chaos spells, some chronomancy spells, some conjuration spells, cryomancy spells, dark art spells, enchantment spells, illusion spells, psychomancy spells, pyromancy spells, or spell, skullduggery spells, teleportation spells, and war spells. All right, so a lot more spells for you there. Then we have Paths of Faerie. So this chapter, chapter 4, gives you some additional paths that are fairy flavored. So just to kind of summarize down here, the expert paths of battle include the Berserker. Oh wait, no. These are choices from the main rule book. Consider these path options for characters associated with the fairies. Okay, so from the core rule book, the paths that are listed here can be associated with fairies. But then we have new expert paths, starting with Chosen of the Fair Folk, Soul of the Seasons. Oh wait, we got... Okay, sorry. Chosen of the Fair Folk, Lady Sworn, Muse, Soul of the Seasons, and that's all the expert paths. And then for master paths, we have a Battle Dancer, the Eye Biter, the Harbinger, Mayhem, Provocateur, Righter of Wrongs, the Roisterer, Silver Horn, a Siren, and Stalwart, and a Transmuter, Unimpeached, and a Vision, and that's it. All right, so I'm not going to go through all these paths because there's way too many of them, and you know, if you're really interested in this supplement, you'll pick it up anyway and you can read through it for yourself. But you know, these are very Fae flavored and oriented, so I think these are some good additions to the ones that are already included in the Shadow of the Weird Wizard core rulebook. All right, and then we got an index in the back here, and we're done. Now this supplement is 47 pages in length, including the index. So it's a pretty good sized book for the supplement, and as usual, you can pick this up in Drive-Thru RPG if you didn't already get it from the original Shadow of the Weird Wizard Kickstarter. Yeah, I would recommend going out there. You can also order not only the PDF, but you can get the print on demand. That's what I got. That's how I got these supplements, by choosing the print on demand option, and they're very reasonably priced. So that's it. That's all. That's the Faerie book for you. So again, if you're interested in Faerie and Fae, this is a really good supplement with a lot of detail, and should give you some ideas on if you're planning on including Fae and Faerie into your campaign. You could do much worse than this supplement. I highly recommend it for those of you that dig the subject matter. All right, that's it for me. I'm keeping this video short, so next time I am likely going to be covering the Demon Lord Engine Rules Compendium. I've been reading through that, and it's very interesting, so I think I would like to take my next video to discuss that, and just kind of give you an idea of what's in it. So with that, let me go ahead and wrap this video up. I want to thank you all for watching once again, and hail to the Demon Lord. How do I stop this damn video?